I'm Larry Menti. Coming up next on Jersey Matters, it's one of the biggest problems in the state, the deficit in the Transportation Trust Fund. We'll talk to an assemblyman and a union leader to find out what they think. Also, one New Jersey community is claiming that residents are being pressured to move out because of their religion. That has prompted an investigation by the U.S. Department of Justice. Those stories and a whole lot more because Jersey Matters. Funding the state's pension fund. It is one of the biggest problems and one of the biggest challenges in the state of New Jersey. I'm Larry Menti. Welcome to Jersey Matters. Democrats in Trenton have come up with a plan for a constitutional amendment to force mandatory payments. Surprisingly, we have a Republican here today who agrees in part. But there's big differences. Assemblyman Declan O'Scanlon is a Republican from Monmouth County. Thank you for being here. Let's get right into the big differences.
Well, the big differences are the Democrats' proposal will bankrupt the state, and my proposal will help make the state bring it closer to fiscal solvency. And that's pretty dramatic differences. If we do what the Democrats are advocating, and we all believe, I believe that we need to meet our commitments to public workers. Certainly all the benefits that they have earned to date, we need to pay for, and we haven't been for the past 15 years in one form or another. But to do the Democrats' constitutional amendment that guarantees we make our payments on a quarterly basis would be a disaster for New Jersey for several reasons. They don't tie the constitutional amendment to any reforms that would help us pay for these things. And we don't have a $1 billion problem this year, $2 billion problem this year. We have an $8 to $10 billion problem fully phased in over the next 5 or 6 years. That is a very, very deep hole. You are not going to fill it with this mythological growth that my friends on the other side of the aisle say will pay for everything. That's just garbage. And mathematically, a fifth grader could figure out that it's just not going to work.
Let me stop you on that point, because the growth, from what I understand it, is tied to three major things. Casinos in the north, right? The revenue from that, just the funding of the transportation fund, which there doesn't seem to be a real steady plan for that, except for the gas tax, which I'll ask you about.
Again, those two first things are very shaky. Keep going. Yep.
No, and then just a regrowth of the economy.
Yes, which amounts to about $1 billion a year, give or take. Some years considerably less than that, and it's unpredictable. And by the way, we might get a recession. In fact, we're due for a recession. We're 6 years out from the last one. One of the longest periods of growth, uninterrupted growth, in a long, long time. To predict, to have a plan that counts on another 6 years of uninterrupted growth is insanity. It's just, and if you have 1 or 2 years of low or no growth, add $2 billion to that $8 billion number that I put out before. It's not going to happen. And we're setting ourselves up for a fiscal disaster. And where would that disaster, the results of that disaster, ramifications of that disaster land? Taxpayers, or people in the state who are dependent on state services. We've already cut almost to the bone over the past 6 years what we can out of the state budget without major reforms. We've held the line. We have people that who are making close to minimum wage who haven't received a raise in the past 6 years. So for those people, it's compounded. It's a, 12, 18% cut already.
You seem to be calling it a sham as a way to force a raise in taxes.
No, actually. I am saying that you're going to eventually have to come to the conclusion you got to do everything.
Well, wait a second. If you're saying that there are three ways to raise revenue is shaky at best, and that the remedy would have to be an increase in taxes later, except for the word sham.
No, in between are reforms that could save us billions of dollars.
I understand that's what you're
saying.
That's
the critical thing.
I understand that. I'm getting to you, but I was talking about the Democratic plan. Now I'll get back.
Well, that's true. I think part of their plan entails having this fiscal crisis hit and then looking to people and say, well, you're forcing us to raise taxes because you voted for this constitutional amendment. Never mind that we put it out there and made it and sugarcoated it as if there'd be no ramifications. That's the sham part. And you're right. They will then use the votes of the people who were just out there trying to be fair against them to then blame them for the tax increases they'll inflict upon them.
Only because I'm talking about it next with our next guest. I want to talk about the transportation fund real quickly and just the remedy that everybody's talking about, and that's a raise in the gas tax, which is extremely unpopular, it seems, when you look at polls. Do you favor an increase in the gas tax?
I have everything on the table. Until someone presents a plan to me, I'm not going to endorse any plan that raises the gas tax, but I'm also not going to endorse any plan that says there's absolutely no gas tax. It has to be fiscally sound. That just like with the pension and our budget, all the math has to end up making sense and adding up. By the way, my plan for health benefits would also save us about $2 billion in property tax as well, which would be about an 8% property tax cut. Just throw that little tidbit.
We have to have you back because there's so much more to talk about with the plan in this fight, so please do. Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. Assemblyman Declan O'Scanlon, a Republican from Monmouth County, who seems to have quite a fight ahead. As I said, we're going to continue to talk about the transportation fund and trying to make it solvent once again before it runs out of money. A union leader weighs in when Jersey Matters continues.